Snoop stopped smoking weed. What? This is crazy. This is crazy. Why? Because Snoop is like the OG of like the marijuana culture. Like he's the OG of it all. Like this is crazy. This is by far probably the craziest thing I've heard all year. But I want to give you guys my perspective on why he stopped smoking. Y'all stay tuned, and I'm gonna break this down right now. Let's get into it. Now, the news comes after this post that he made. After much consideration and conversation with my family, I have decided to give up smoke. Please respect my privacy at this time. So, a lot of people have been disappointed. I guess that's why he's saying respect my privacy. But from my perspective, I'm going to give you a little bit of breakdown of why I feel like he is stopping or quitting smoking. Now, when we talk about marijuana use, right, there's a lot of different factors that come along with it when we talk about our mental state. Now, me personally, I'm not against, marijuana. I'm not going to bash anybody for using marijuana. But what I will say is, many a times when you're using marijuana to cope and you're starting to use it and be very dependent on it, it can be an issue, right? It could be a huge issue. Now, I'm not sure if this is what Snoop was specifically experiencing, but I can tell you from this standpoint, there's a lot of clients that I work with that quote unquote feel like they don't have a weed addiction. They just smoke weed 3 times a day and they don't feel like weed is a problem, right? I feel like weed becomes an issue when you become super dependent on it, right? And there's actually a diagnosis for that. It's called a cannabis dependency disorder. You know what I mean? Just as any other substance, like if you're using alcohol, again, alcohol, nothing wrong with drinking, but if you use it as a dependent, then that's a huge issue. You know what I mean? That is a huge, huge issue. So you have to really, really consider if you are using marijuana. And I'm glad that Snoop is kind of, I hope he expounds on this a little bit more. But if you are using marijuana, you really have to consider what's the reason why you're using it. You know what I mean? What's the real reason why you're using marijuana? Using marijuana as a form of like coping, or using marijuana just as a form of like, you know, to to get through something, or use it recreational once in a while, whatever it is. You know what I mean? But when you're using marijuana as a dependency and you're using it day in, day out, that's an addiction. You know what I mean? That's an addiction. I had a conversation with a few folks earlier this week about just like what an addiction is. Like, food can be an addiction. Marijuana can be addiction. Substances or alcohol can be an addiction. You know what I mean? But we don't really look at marijuana as just being like an addiction. You know what I mean? Like we don't look at it as being an addiction. We look at it being as acceptable, right? Because culturally it is acceptable. Now, there are a few folks that will have that debate of like, well, it's healing. It helps me. It helps me decrease my anxiety. It helps me, do all these different things, which, it may be helpful. It may be helpful. I'm not knocking the personal experience and the personal, benefits of you may be having of using marijuana. But when we talk about using it to cope, you know what I mean? And you're not able to cope or go through your day without being high, that's an addiction. Like straight up, that's an addiction. Now, I will go on to say, Snoop, it sounds as if he may be going through something right now that is channeling him to stop smoking. You know what I mean? It's obviously something that he is, you know, I don't know if it's like a spiritual awakening, or it might be like something that he's thought about, that he's like, okay, well, I'm done smoking. Now, I'll say two things about that. One, he's not the first person to come out and say like they quit smoking per se. There's Willie Nelson. I'm not sure if you guys know Willie Nelson. He's a country singer, but he's like probably, he's the OG of Snoop when it comes to smoking. Like he is the OG of Snoop when it comes to smoking. Now he came out and said like, "Hey, I'm no longer going to be smoking." Now his smoking, or cannabis use came from a different angle, because he was like, "I'm no longer going to smoke cannabis, but I'm going to like, take edibles and things of that nature, because I guess it's healthier to use, as a for medicinal purposes, to ingest it, through a gummy or whatever, as opposed to like smoking the actual flower, right?" So that's the first thing. The second thing is, this isn't the first time Snoop has tried or attempted to stop smoking marijuana. You know what I mean? That's not the first time he's tried to stop smoking weed. there was a time, if you guys know, that Snoop, he was actually signed under No Limit Records with Master P, right? And one of the things Master P told him was actually like, "Hey, you need to lay off the weed for a bit." You know what I mean? Because he felt like it was being a little bit more damaging than, like, being more pretty much a liability more an asset. It wasn't really helping him. So he comes off of certain interviews and he says like, "Yeah, like that was a time where I was really, really clear minded." He goes on interviews. If you guys look it up, Master P interviews. Snoop always gives a lot of props to Master P and the things that he's done. So that was the second time that he actually openly said like I had stopped smoking for a bit. So this isn't the first time, but it seems as if this statement and what the route he's going right now, it seems like it's going to be more of a permanent thing. You know what I mean? The way he's moving about it, the way he's going about it, the way he's navigating social media around it right now, it seems as if like he's pretty much done. You know what I mean? It seems like he's pretty much done. Now, there can be a number of reasons why. Again, it could be a number of reasons why, but I want to say when it comes to Snoop and his quitting the smoking, I hope that he's getting what he's expecting out of it. Obviously, when you quit something, you see quitting something as there's something on the other side. Like there has to be something beneficial to quitting. You know what I mean? So whatever it is that Snoop is grappling with or he's dealing with, my hopes is that he's able to get that benefit of quitting the smoking. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, are a lot of us disappointed? Absolutely. Like, we a lot of us may have looked up to Snoop as like, our smoking idol. Like, there are a lot of people that haven't been able to outsmoke Snoop, or like when you think about, if you ever want to smoke weed with somebody, most folks would be like, well, I want to. If there's ever a time I want to smoke weed, it's going to be with Snoop. You know what I mean? So if you guys ever had those moments to be able to smoke with Snoop, it sounds like that's going to be a moment to cherish because it doesn't sound like it's going to be like a moment to ever relive and get back. Not for the simple fact of you may not ever meet Snoop again, but it sounds like he's pretty much done so with the cannabis use. You know what I mean? So I want to say kudos to Snoop. My hopes again is that you get the healing that you deserve, and that when you're navigating these spaces, when you're done, quit smoking, it can be tough. You know what I mean? Especially not only just that you use marijuana just on a regular basis, but like you have other people that like looked up to you in doing this act too. You know what I mean? So there's been a lot of celebrities that come out and say like, well, I stopped drinking, and then like they notice like their friend groups diminished, or I stopped participating in vices or whatever it is. And what happens is a lot of folks will start to notice like their friend group starts to diminish. So my hopes is that for Snoop, man, whoever was rocking with Snoop before, continue to rock with him, and if you guys were rocking with him, and hopefully it wasn't just a benefit of you being around him because he was smoking marijuana. You know what I mean? I noticed that a lot too. Like when I had stopped like drinking as much, and like I stopped smoking and things of that nature. Like I realized even with my own friend circle, it looked a little bit different, right? But then you start to notice it's like, well, were those people really my friends, or were they just around just to kick it? You know what I mean? So this goes into interpersonal relationships, right? So even when we talk about mental health, interpersonal relationships are huge because you have to have interpersonal relationships in order to healthy interpersonal relationships. You can have unhealthy interpersonal relationships, but you want to have healthy interpersonal relationships so that you can have a great support system, have people around you, and to support you as well too. So again, shout out to Snoop, man. Again, much love to you. My hopes is that you get what you want out of it, and that from a mental health standpoint, man, you A1. You know what I mean? You are A1. You are a legend. You are loved. You are a pillar of the community. You are a leader. And again, my hopes is that you become your best self, bro. That's what it's really about. You become your best self, no matter what people say about it, what other people may peer pressure or talk smack, or like, hey, like try to pull you to the side, like, hey, Snoop, you know what I mean? I know you quit, but one last time, you know what I mean? So again, I appreciate y'all tapping in. Make sure you guys subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, my name's Terrence, the therapist. Y'all take care. Peace.